Hello, welcome to Radio 4's Consumer Programme. Today we've been looking into a new fraud involving Deliveroo with applicants for work using the addresses of strangers. We'll be talking about parcel delivery services and what happens when things of sentimental value get lost.
It's been since April that we've been waiting for it. So, it is a shame. And for me, it's not really so much, it's not about the refund.
And 70 years ago today, the first TV ad aired in the UK.
It's tingling fresh. It's fresh as ice. It's Gibbs SR toothpaste.
As television viewing changes, how are the advertisers responding? Do you have an all-time favourite telly ad? Get in touch, let us know. Email you and yours at bbc.co.uk or text us to 84844. A couple of years ago now, you and yours exposed how Deliveroo rider accounts were being offered for rent on social media. This summer, investigations by the Daily Telegraph and the Sun newspapers reported on how some Deliveroo riders are sharing their accounts with illegal migrants who are not allowed to work, and sharing them with people who have criminal records. They would never get these jobs. At the end of June, the Home Office announced that it had reached an agreement with Deliveroo to strengthen checks on substitute riders. Deliveroo said there will be random selfie photo checks and that it is preventing deliveries by riders who are setting out from asylum hotels. But listeners have been in touch with us, worried about what seems to be a new development in this Deliveroo account sharing fraud. At least 6 residents in one street in South London have had Deliveroo starter kits addressed to men with African names delivered to their houses. One of these residents is called Lizzie, and she got in touch with us. So Lizzie, tell us then what happened.
Well, we've got a neighbourhood WhatsApp group, and one day a neighbour just put a photo of a package on the group and said, does anybody know this person, because it's been delivered to my house, but obviously it's not for me. And nobody did. So I was aware of it. And then the next day, a great big package was on my doorstep, which my husband brought in. And I said, I think we've got one of those. That's how strange. And then I thought, OK, well, it's 2. So it's not yet a pattern. But, so I put it on the WhatsApp group as well. And people started saying, oh, yeah, I've got one. And I saw somebody delivering a few, a couple of days ago. And then a neighbour said, well, I'm just walking down the road and I can see that they're outside quite a few houses. So I was a bit shy about opening it, because you're not supposed to open other people's mail, but it just seemed wrong.
Well, that's right, unless you suspect that there's some kind of criminality, something wrong going on, and I think then you are allowed to open them. So that's what you thought.
Yeah, so that's how I felt. Yeah, I just sort of thought, OK, there's something dodgy going on here. So I opened it, and it was this, starter pack. It had, a waterproof top and another top, and they were all for Deliveroo, and a big bag, and a phone holder of some sort. It just sort of seemed very, very strange, which is why I thought there's some kind of scam going on, but I can't understand what it is, which is why I got in touch.
Well, thank you. Did all the boxes contain the same thing?
Yes, yeah, that's what people said on the group. Yeah, so
it would only, of the people on the group. So on the group, how many people had boxes?
Well, they're sort of big packets, actually, sort of big plastic packets.
Okay.
And I sort of worked out that it must, bare minimum, if I don't count that someone said, oh, I saw several outside doors, the ones that we've got photos of are about 6. But I think that there were a lot more, but not everyone's on the group. So
here they are, that they come to you, to your address, but the name on the box is somebody else. Does anyone ever come and collect them?
Not that we've seen, but one of the neighbours on the group again said that they saw somebody driving very slowly along the road, sort of looking at the houses. So, they thought that someone was looking to pick them up. But nobody's knocked on any doors as far as I know.
Well, we've been trying to look into what might be happening here at your request, and we asked Dr. Matthew Cole, he's an Associate Professor of Technology Work and Employment at the University of Sussex, what he thinks might be going on, because we know that he has been researching how Deliveroo works, and he's done research with riders in South London, where you live, Lizzie. So, Dr. Cole, these appear to be Deliveroo starter kits for new riders who've given false addresses, the addresses of people in Lizzie Street, addresses that have nothing to do with them. What checks are Deliveroo meant to make before a rider's taken on and sent one of these kits?
Hi.
Hi.
Well, I think Deliveroo is quite clear on their website what sort of checks that they do for all of their riders, some sort of proof of address, and then they have to, have upload their right to work documents and, which involves a photo ID and all of these sorts of things. And they're fairly clear that that's what you need to do and then send a kit. But you can sort of change the address that you send the kit to at any point. So that's currently, I think, what is on their website.
So they are the authorised delivery riders, they ride bikes, don't they?
Yeah.
Why are authorised Deliveroo riders allowed to get someone else to sometimes do this delivery work for them? Because that is allowed.
Yeah, and so this is kind of key to the business model, right? Because in the UK, you have 3 different employment statuses. Your sort of normal employee contract, and then a sort of middle version, which is a LIMBY worker or dependent contractor, and then there's self-employed contractor. And Deliveroo uses riders based on the sort of self-employment model, so they can substitute anyone else to do the work. And the substitutes do need to be registered on the platform now. Deliveroo has taken up more rigorous checks of ID and that sort of thing. But essentially, it's key to their business model that they have this sort of employment check. And the Independent Workers of Great Britain had actually been fighting a case for about 7 years against the Central Arbitration Committee to contest this sort of self-employment status, because it limits the sort of protections that you can have as a rider. It limits the oversight and regulation that various like employment tribunals or employment law can actually have over the riders. So that's sort of key to this problem, I think.
What's the scale of this use of substitutes? Does anybody know?
Well, this one's a bit harder. It's hard. Like, I mean, I've interviewed lots of workers. I live in South London myself, actually, and I'm aware, where they sort of congregate. And but it's hard to tell, really. I think there's roughly 83,000 food delivery riders in total. Deliveroo makes up a large portion of this. I don't, it's hard to tell though because of the self-employment. Anyone can sign up. It's not clear how many people are working at any given time, and the use of substitutes is also quite difficult. I think you'd have to get some numbers from Deliveroo about that. But there's been lots of attention on this sort of unregulated working and a lot of stops by immigration enforcement over the past few years. So you can sort of estimate based on that maybe what the sort of scale of unregulated substitutes are, but it's very hard to.
Yes, to get to a firm figure. As you said, Deliveroo insists that any substitute riders employed must pass all the same checks as the primary rider before they start work. So how has it happened that accounts are being shared with people who couldn't possibly pass the checks? As you say, migrants are found doing this work, migrants who don't have permission to work in the UK, and in some instances people with criminal records.
Yeah, and children as well.
Well,
teenagers, right? There was a case of a teenager, riding fast and getting seriously injured. I believe someone also unfortunately died from this. And that's not safe for anyone on the street, or let alone the poor kid on an e-bike, right? But I mean, there are lots of forums and various ways that you can find someone with a legitimate account that will rent that account out to you. And one of the issues with the sort of lack of regulation in the sector and the lack of employment protections and oversight means that it's essentially in the interest of some of these companies to not pay too much attention. And more recently, they have introduced, like Deliveroo's introduced very more frequent facial ID checks, right, which you think might solve this problem. But it's very all you need to do is have a phone registered with someone with relevant checks and a few ready-to-hand selfies to do the selfie checks and continue working. And many workers do this. They rent the account holder for anywhere between £40 to £120 a week, depending on how highly rated the account is, because Deliveroo has an algorithm that allocates work, and the more higher rated accounts will get more work, and then you'll earn more money. And so it's a cycle that sort of perpetuates itself, largely based around the model.
Lizzie, quite apart from the Deliveroo kits that came addressed to other people, you and at least one other person in the street I know have had your Thames Water accounts hijacked. Could you very briefly tell us what happened with that?
Yeah, so it was literally just a couple of days later, I received a final demand from Thames Water, fortunately not in my name, but, demanding over £400. So I thought, oh gosh, this just seems, problematic again. So I phoned Thames Water, and they said, your account was closed because somebody opened an account at your address on the 1st of February. So that's a long, long time ago. But I didn't know anything about it. And then I told my WhatsApp group again, and somebody said, oh yes, I had an email saying they were closing my Thames Water account. So I think somebody had registered at my address as well.
Well, we asked our reporter Julian Pashkovich to try and find out what's been going on here, Lizzie. So Julian, let's look at the Thames Water thing now. How is it possible for a stranger to set up a new Thames Water account at your home?
Well, the company says that all anyone needs to set up an account is the address of the property and an email address. So I asked Thames Water, does it check if people are moving out before someone registers for bills at their home? It turns out they don't. It told me that with 16 million customers and hundreds moving every day, it's just not practical. It has to act on good faith.
Now, the big question, the thing that Lizzie suspects, are these fraudulent Thames Water accounts linked in any way with the fake Deliveroo accounts, the fake names, the stuff that's come to their houses?
No, there's no obvious link. Deliveroo says it accepts a single water bill as proof of address for riders, but in this case, it said 5 of the riders on Lizzie's street sent bank statements, while the other sent a mobile phone bill.
So of those names of people who's registered as addresses in her street, none of them used a Thames Water bill?
No.
Now, the name on Lizzie's final demand for Thames Water is Romanian. We said that the name on the packages, they were African names. Did those names on the kits provide any clues?
Well, I showed the 6 names on the rider kit parcels to our colleagues at the World Service. It turns out that they are some of the most common names in both Eritrea and northern Ethiopia. However, as we heard from Lizzie, they don't appear to live on her street, and we haven't been able to contact the riders.
What does Deliveroo say?
Quite a lot, actually. It first told us that when the kits were sent, riders can get them sent to any address. That doesn't explain why at least 6 appeared on the same street around the same time to names that, from what we've seen, appear connected. Now, the company says it's investigating. It's blocked further kit deliveries to Lizzie's street. It's also suspended the accounts, but says they were main riders, not substitutes. It says they passed all its checks. Now, Deliveroo also told us it believes it's inaccurate to connect what happened here with stories about substitute riders in the papers, and we've touched on earlier. And it also maintains that all riders, even substitutes, are checked for right to work and criminal records before they start.
Dr. Matthew Coe, just before we let you go, did you find any evidence that organised criminals are running these fraudulent Deliveroo accounts?
I mean, I don't have access to that sort of information. What I do know is that you have a lot of very desperate people in the country waiting for months, appealing asylum decisions with no viable legal employment options, often living in squalid, overcrowded bedsits or rundown hotel rooms, right? These people need some money and are going to find ways of getting it, whether that is through high-tech substitution schemes with these Deliveroo accounts, or working cash in hand at restaurants, car washes, or construction sites. And what connects all of these is that you have a kind of lack of regularization, lack of kind of legal paths, which would actually create much more job stability for the workforce that isn't essentially being undermined by these potentially criminal gangs. I don't like the word criminal gangs, but wherever there is a lack of regulation, there will be people taking advantage of that
exploitation. Yeah. Dr. Matthew Cole, Julian Pashkovich, Lizzie, thank you all. The time now is 12:20. This is You and Yours, Radio 4's consumer programme. Lodging, where tenants live with their landlord, is on the rise. The website Spare Room says it's seen the number of ads for a lodger increase by 50% in the last 3 years, and it expects the numbers to climb further. For young people starting out in particular, or anyone who doesn't have much money, renting a room can be the only option they can afford. But along with more ads, there are also more rules being advertised. Imposed, really, not only for lodgers sharing someone else's home, but also in flat shares, where groups of tenants are advertising to fill a vacant room. Here are some flat share ads read by our team.
You'll be living with 3 other girls in their mid-20s, all super lovely and friendly. We all have busy lives, but love a catch-up and a trip down the pubs and restaurants here. Also looking for a flatmate that works mainly at the office.
You will be sharing with 6 people. Amongst us are DJs, a dancer, a visual artist, and a theatre professional. We're looking for an individual with a happy sense of joie de vivre and enthusiasm towards being an active part of the household. Plus, be one to clean up, put the bins out without thinking twice, and do 2-minute declutters. This is not a party house. The vision is a creative powerhouse with a supportive communal vibe.
Hello, I'm looking for a professional female, mid-30s-ish and above, and maybe almost vegetarian. You'll be sharing this lovely flat with myself, a female creative who works in TV. I like to treat this place like home, so I'm looking for someone with the same mindset. I'm a 10-minute in and out of the kitchen type, ideally looking for similar.
Some flat share ads. These people sound exhausting, don't they? Well, someone who has been exhausted by it is Kimmy Chadder. She's a journalist. She's looking to move from Manchester to London, and she has written about the kind of conditions that are being applied in these ads. Kimmy, we just heard a few there. You know, one, she'd like you to be in and out of the kitchen in 10 minutes. No working from home, a vegetarian. Tell us about some of the ones that you have seen.
No, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, so, thank you. So I think when I started to look in the end of July to August, I noticed that there was a proliferation of adverts with, frankly, some quite bizarre rules. So one of them stipulated that they'd recently refurbished their outside garden, and as a result of that refurbishment, the new flatmate would be expected to pay a £50 contribution to maintaining the garden that they had no part to play in refurbishing. Another flatmate, I noticed, wasn't so interested in what I like to do or how I would spend my time as much as they were interested in how frequently I like to cook, how often I would work from home and where I planned on working from home. So it really just became increasingly common, particularly over the summer, when you see more people trying to move down to London because they're either starting a new job or the students are starting university. And I wasn't sure if it was a kind of desperation almost that they knew that they had more power to impose those rules. But generally just bizarre rules that are becoming increasingly frequent on sites like Spare Room.
Why do you think that is? You've mentioned that it might be because of the time of year, you know, people expecting an influx of students, I suppose, trying to put the foot down. Anything else? I mean, are we becoming less tolerant?
Yeah, I think there are a few factors. So I think the first and foremost is the financial aspect of it. I think people, especially young people, are more and more conscious of the price of everything. And with the cost of living, then perhaps people feel conscious of, you know, there was a piece in the Guardian that where a flatmate was counting how many cups of tea their flatmate drank in a day. I think it was like 9, if you're interested. So I think the financial aspect is first and foremost. And I think the second aspect, sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
Sure. I think the second aspect is more to do with people generally, if they can afford to live alone, they would rather live alone. But what we're seeing now is that more and more young people are being kind of kept into these house shares until their early 30s. So you're trying to put down more and more rules. But in reality, your ideal flatmate doesn't really exist because you don't want a flatmate. You want to live alone. You want the place to yourself. But when you're house sharing, you can't really have a place to yourself unless you stipulate, I don't want someone who's home on like a Saturday or Sunday or in the evenings. You know, so I think it's those two factors are probably the most important.
So have you found anywhere yet, Kimmy?
No, I wish I could be more positive.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was going to ask you for advice you'd give anyone looking, but then I suppose you've not been successful.
I think the kind of general advice that I've seen, if that's helpful, like particularly from being on Facebook groups where people are searching for like houses to rent, etc.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I think the first thing is to not rush and always see whatever you plan to rent in person. I've seen quite a few, and I think this happens a lot to people who don't live in London or international students, where they do a virtual viewing, everything seems fine, and then they put down a deposit and then they don't hear from the person ever again. So I think where you can, always try and see the property in person.
That's good. That's great advice. Good luck to you, Kimmy. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Now, a warning about a fraud selling tickets on Instagram to the tennis at Wimbledon this year. Wimbledon tickets are really hard to get hold of, and there are only a few ways to buy them. You can join a free ballot. You can queue up in person on the day. People camp out overnight to do that. And you can buy tickets from a few approved hospitality partners. Angela Hector thought she was doing that, buying tickets from an approved partner. She saw an advert on Instagram to buy tickets for 2026 through a company called Ace & Co London. It's worth pointing out that there are a number of legitimate businesses with similar names. So, Angela, I'm guessing you're a big Wimbledon fan?
Hello, Winifred.
Hi.
Yes, I am a huge fan. I've been interested in tennis since I started to learn at school a long time ago.
So you must have tried to get Wimbledon tickets before now?
I have actually been to the championships in 2015. At that time, I joined the queue at lunchtime and went with a friend and we got in. It was a lot of queuing, and we actually got to see about 40 minutes of a match.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to go for the whole day, and experience the whole atmosphere properly with tickets.
So what drew you to this ad? What were you doing? You were doom scrolling on your Instagram account?
Well, I'm not on social media that much, but I go on Insta, once or twice a day, just honestly, and just flick through. And I saw this ad, and it was, pre-order now your Wimbledon tickets for 2026. And I thought, oh, fantastic. It had some logos which looked tennis related. So I thought, oh, great, I'll try this out.
So you were attracted to this ad. You thought it looked great. How much did you pay?
Well, I went online and there were various options for different ticket prices. The premium option had already sold out, according to them. I went for the standard option and I bought 2 tickets for the men's semi-finals day, which would be Friday the 10th of July.
I mean, that is a bit dream on, isn't it? I'm sorry to be mean, but that is a bit dream on. 2 tickets for the men's semi-finals. But anyway, go on. So there you were in the moment on your Instagram account. We've all done it.
Yes. And I paid £510.
Yeah, they're expensive mistakes, aren't they? When did you realise that you weren't going to get these tickets?
Well, I should have had a warning when I actually couldn't put my credit card details, my debit card details in, and then I had to use Apple Pay to purchase the tickets. But it wasn't actually until 26th of August, that was 13th of August, 26th of August, I received an email from Wimbledon because I was signed up to enter the ballot. So it was all about preparation for the ballot. And in that email, they mentioned about purchasing tickets only through their authorised sellers, public ballot, as you've mentioned. And that's when I really thought, uh-oh. I've done something wrong here.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So where are you now with it, with trying to get this money back? You're more than £500 down.
I spoke with Santander and they said that they would put me through to the security team, which they did, and they've raised a dispute and an investigation. That was last week that I spoke to them, and I told I might be refunded the money, so no guarantees. I guess it depends on the investigation.
But you paid by debit card, not by credit card.
I paid by debit card.
Yeah, it's a bit
Apple
harder,
Pay.
it's harder to get your money back that way.
Well, when I spoke to the administrators, they seemed quite confident that I would get my money back, but of course they couldn't guarantee that. So I'm just waiting to hear back from Santander. And they cancelled my debit card, so I'm waiting for a new card to arrive in the post.
I guess that's right, because if this is fraud and it looks as if it was, they've got all your card details. When you say the administrators think you'll get your money back, the administrators where? At Santander?
At Santander, yes. There's 2 ladies that I spoke to, and they were they gave me a lot of confidence that I'd get my money back.
Okay, well,
but of course, it depends on the security department's decision.
Okay, fingers crossed then. We tried to get in contact with this company, Ace & Co London, but we've received no response to any of our messages, and all of the links in your confirmation emails and online, as you probably know, they're all now inactive.
Yes.
Reg Walker owns the Iridium Consultancy, and it works with companies running events to try to prevent tickets being bought for resale by professional touts. Reg, I realise this is a bit different to your bread and butter daily work, but what do you think has happened here with Angela and this Instagram ad?
I think the problem is it's a small-scale fraud. And this isn't me trivialising Angela's fraud. I mean, it's a dreadful experience to go through. We've seen remarkably stable figures on the amounts of ticket fraud on social media over many years now. Fortunately, it's much more difficult to engage in mass fraud through social media. It takes you time to develop an account, get so many followers or people looking at your account to defraud them. So that's the sort of blessing in disguise. The downside is with all of these social media companies, they have absolutely slashed the numbers of staff they have to deal with reports of fraud or any way to get these criminal links or criminal accounts taken offline. It can take weeks, months, or sometimes they just simply do not come down at all, and they're left there until they just burn out. So the social media companies certainly bear the brunt of the problem and the failure to tackle these types of fraud. And the second part is law enforcement on the internet is absolutely abysmal in the UK, and consumers have effectively been thrown under a bus year after year after year.
How can someone like Angela protect themselves when they're buying tickets to events?
I think the most important thing is check with the event organiser, make sure that you get the list off of the official website of the official ticket outlets and stick to those. Don't be tempted. Don't let a red mist come down, no matter how badly you want to see something, to go off piste and go onto one of these sites or one of these links where it's not a case of if, it's a case of when you will become a victim of fraud. The other point is always pay by credit card. If you pay by credit card, the transaction's over £100, you will get your money back if you don't get the goods as described, or don't get the goods at all, or the tickets at all. So those 2 things go a long, long, long way to keep you safe. But all I would say is don't ever buy by bank transfer, don't pay for anything by bank transfer, and don't use social media, and don't go through friends. People online, they're not your friends. They're just people that have ticked a box. Steer clear of it.
And you said that it's much harder now on social media to organise a large-scale fraud, that this is a small-scale fraud. But these small-scale frauds, are they becoming more of a problem?
They've always been a problem. They've just never been addressed. This is the issue. And it's where you're competing for resources within the police or any other law enforcement agency. They will be looking at something that will be creating 1,000, 5,000 victims, whereas these types of fraud that may well create 10, 20, 50 victims hardly ever, if ever, get investigated.
Yeah, they probably know that. Yes, risk-free for them.
Yeah, it's almost entirely risk-free. But it's absolutely vital that victims report this to Action Fraud. The more people that report, the more it piles pressure on police to actually do something about this. But the current situation with law enforcement and consumer protection in the UK has been abysmal for years, and it's something which we should be as a country ashamed of.
Angela, have you reported it to Action Fraud?
Yes, I reported it to Action Fraud, and I've received a response from Thames Valley Police about fraud prevention response.
Well, at least you've done that. That's good. Well done. Yeah. And thanks for getting in touch with us, Angela. We approached Meta, the owners of Instagram, about what happened to you, but we've had no response from them. We also approached the All England Lawn Tennis Club. They organise Wimbledon, and they told us, we strongly advise listeners who want to come to the championships to check wimbledon.com/tickets, wimbledon.com/tickets for the details on how to buy them. We do see bad actors attempting to pass themselves off as ticket sellers. We include warnings in emails, the kind that Angela saw, and in the ticket application process. We tell our lawyers when we find out about fraud, and they report cases to the police, and they contact the social media companies to try to get these sites taken down. 70 years ago today, independent television got up and running. It was funded by advertising, unlike the BBC. 23 different brands competed in a lottery to be the very first ever advert on telly. Those brands included Guinness, Surf, National Benzol and Brown & Paulson's Custard. The winner was Gibbs SR toothpaste. Here's some of the ad.
It's tingling fresh. It's fresh as ice. It's Gibbs SR toothpaste, the tingling fresh toothpaste that does your gums good too. The tingle you get when you brush with SR is much more than a nice taste. It's a tingle of health. It tells you something very important, that you're doing your gums good and toughening them to resist infection.
Well, the pictures in that ad show a stream trickling through a forest over some snow-covered rocks, and then the shot settles on one of the rocks where there's a block of ice with a tube of toothpaste and a toothbrush frozen inside it. And then there's a young woman with perfect teeth brushing them and a graph about tooth decay. It didn't do much for sales of SR because hardly anyone had a telly back then, and the ad has been forgotten. We asked some shoppers in Salford about the ads that stick with them these days.
I think it's those ones that are sort of A, quite short, but B, sort of, they are memorable. I mean, I always remember when it was, Moonpig, and it used to be like moonpig.com or whatever that. I just think, then whenever you say the brand name, you sort of sing it. I think sort of those sorts of ones really stick in my brain where you associate it directly with the company and directly with the name.
They might stick in your head, but do you think they influence your purchasing decisions?
To some degree, I think then when you come to actually, require one of those services, by having that jingle, I feel like it's often in the forefront of your mind.
The Moonpig one, that is literally what I was going to say, and that does influence when I'm going to buy it. Whenever I need that service, I will just use it.
Probably Go Compare. I guess it's just taken like a familiar song of Over There, but it's just done a clever spin on it, and it's just very catchy, very memorable, very strong. I think it definitely does a good job of brand awareness and getting you front of mind in those purchasing moments, but whether or not it tips you into making that decision, I think it's more personal circumstances.
At the moment, it's the Domino's one that's like before ITV stuff. But I wouldn't say I bought it, but I'll just say it like randomly, and like other ones in the past that have been like the Go Compare one and stuff.
Do you think when it comes to it, it's influencing your purchasing decisions?
Probably, yeah, because I'll remember it and I'll just sing it out loud and I go, oh, I remember this now, I remember that. So yeah, I probably think it does.
It'd probably be the We Buy Any Car, just sold my car jingle. It's just so catchy, isn't it? It's so simple, and it's just the same rhythm repeated over and over. I suppose it keeps it top of mind. Like when I was coming to sell my car, that was one of the top options that came to mind. Yeah, I guess it does have an effect.
Some shoppers in Salford. Darren Bales is the Global Chief Creative Officer at the advertising agency VCCP. Now, he was part of the team that created those Meerkat adverts for Compare the Market that were mentioned by one of the shoppers there. Lynn Deason is Head of Creative Excellence at the market researchers Kantar. And Lynn, I know that you study television ads and the way they get our attention. The toothpaste ad is very serious, isn't it? The Meerkats are very funny. When did humour start to creep in?
Well, humour's actually been declining in use. So if you go back to the 90s, about 4 in 5 ads were funny. And now we're down to around 2 in 5 ads using humour. But that's a real shame because humour really drives effective advertising.
Yeah, we asked our audience just to write at the start for their favourite ads, and many of them are funny ones. Christine from Cambridge says one of her favourites is the Cadbury's eyebrows one for chocolate, which is wonderfully quirky. People who know that, the two children sitting side by side, whose eyebrows move to the music. And another one, Tony and Luton says, I love the Luton Airport ad with Lorraine Chase. I don't know if it worked as an ad because I can't remember what she was advertising. A drink, I think. How can you tell, Lynn, when an ad has been effective?
So in our day-to-day job, that's what we're doing, is we're helping clients understand if an ad is going to be effective or not. So we help them predict that effectiveness. But then there's also techniques that you can use in market to look at whether the sales have moved in line with advertising. And you can also look to see how around the advertising period, people's opinions and perceptions of a brand have evolved or not.
So when you say you predict whether they'll work, what do you do? Show them to focus groups?
There's a range of different techniques we use, so we can help clients understand from a really early stage with the seeds of an idea if it's got potential or not. And then as we go through the journey and you get more developed ads, then what we would do is we show them to 150 people, we ask them a set of questions about them, but we also use something called facial coding where they give us our permission. And what that allows us to do is to capture their faces and the reactions on their faces moment by moment as they watch the ad, so we can see how emotionally engaged they are and if the idea is landing as well as we hope.
Before we hear from Darren, let's hear those meerkats.
I am Alexander, founder of CompareTheMeerkat.com, where we compare meerkats. But lately we get many people looking for car insurance. People looking for CompareTheMarket.com. So, CompareTheMeerkat.com, CompareTheMarket.com. Simple.
Darren, what that ad has got in common, I suppose, with the SR toothpaste thing is it's just so bizarre, isn't it? You know, the stream and then the block of ice with the toothpaste and toothbrush in it. You know, the first question is, what are you people on? How'd you do it?
It's a very good question. Advertising, we spend our clients' money to help make their brands famous. And the worst thing that we can possibly do is spend money and it gets ignored and no one notices it. So everything we try and do, especially Meerkats is a great example of, let's do an idea that's slightly off the wall. It's going to stand out from all the other price comparison websites around it. An interesting idea with a meerkat who's running a business who says, don't come to my website, go to their website for cheap currency. It was so multi-layered and interesting and odd. It stood out a mile from everything else, really.
So what type of ads, Darren, do you think people like at the moment? Lynn mentioned this thing of emotional engagement rather than fun.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there was a kind of 90s, 2000s heyday of great lager, beer type advertising with John Smith's and really, really funny classic scripts. I think at the minute maybe the world's just a bit more serious, and we like to be. We do advertising for Cadbury, which is just very, very emotional. We want people to lean in and feel cozy and warm around the Cadbury brand. But still, with Meerkats, we want to do funny jokes and silly things with the Meerkats, Alexander and Sergei, and we want to entertain people in that way because it's financial management. It's a very dry sector, so the more colour and fun we can bring to the world, then the advertising works a lot better.
There are ads, Darren, aren't there, that are loved in exactly the way that programmes are loved. The Meerkat's probably one of those. Should have gone to Specsavers is a wonderful one. Yeah. The Cadbury's ad with the gorilla. We asked our audience, this one from Heidi in Muswell Hill, the Levi's laundrette ad. I was a teenager in the 1980s. When it came on, one of my sisters would shriek, "It's the Levi's ad," and we would all come running to see it. Can you think of an ad like that, like those now? I mean, really wonderful ads that people love as much as they love a favourite programme.
Probably not. It's probably different now. But in those times, we were all sitting in front of the TV watching Levi's laundrette. The world is a little bit different now. So you have ads that are very big with certain audiences. One I would pick would be the KFC ad from not so long ago, where there's kind of a cold in the woods and somebody becomes a piece of chicken and it's dipped into gravy. Really, really, what are they on? Really, really odd. But again, it's just making sure that you're not ignored and starting conversation with your audience. And that KFC spot really did do that job.
Lynn, obviously streaming and catch-up telly have hugely changed the way we watch TV because you can sometimes spool through the ads, not always. Obviously some streamers stop you doing that. You can also just spool through your phone while the ads are on, can't you? Catch up with your emails or whatever it is that we do. How are the advertisers responding to try to get over that?
So I think, as Darren's saying, what you've got to do is make sure that you grab people's attention. So the worst thing is to be ignored. Brands do that in lots of different ways. Increasingly, brands are tapping into culture and things that are really meaningful and resonant to people. So you need that hook in the beginning. And then things that have made advertising effective for years, fantastic storytelling, humour, having characters like the brilliant meerkats, and also really enjoyable music. Music is a fantastic lever for eliciting emotion in us. It helps us notice things and it also helps us remember them. So there's lots of different ways, and that creativity and originality that Darren brings is so important because our brains pay attention to things that are different.
Darren, are you conscious that you're trying to distract people off their mobile phone now, often?
Yeah, it's the whole world is distracting us. So I think wherever you are in the world, you're being bombarded with messages and kind of noises and sounds and music. And we know we have to do something different. It's just like, as we've said, it's too easy to be ignored. We have to be a little bit weird, a little bit odd, and then we can start to get inside people's brains. But when you get it right, people like to be entertained. People don't really mind, as long as you're challenging and entertaining. The worst thing that will get people turning off is when you're dull and boring.
Or when you have to watch the same ad again and again and again. I mean, that is the downside, isn't it, of a lot of TV dramas sponsored by whatever.
Yeah, but that's when hopefully your client should maybe invest a bit more money and keep refreshing their message.
Well, you would say that.
Yeah, they should.
Okay.
There are some interesting examples, though, of ads that have played for years on repeat. So if you think about, Coca-Cola's Holidays Are Coming, it's been on air for over 25 years now. And actually, that's a real cultural moment in the calendar. There's a lot of anticipation. People can't wait to see it. They almost feel Christmas hasn't started until they've seen it. So you can use ads on repeat. But you're right, that, that media buying element, so people don't feel bombarded, is important in ensuring you're a welcome and enjoyable part of people's lives, not a disruption to what they want to do and enjoy.
Lindisa from Kantar, Darren Bales from VCCP. Thank you both for that. And more ad nominations coming in. The Cadbury's Flake ad, only the crumbliest, flakiest chocolate one. That one tastes like nothing, like chocolate never tasted before. And the Martini ad, any time, any place, anywhere. And Elizabeth Grieve and Mike Palmer have just said that they love the Smash mashed potato robots. Even thinking about them makes me smile, says Mike. Parcel delivery companies are gearing up for their busiest time, the weeks leading up to Christmas. Parcel deliveries are great when they go right, but when they go wrong, customer service can be poor. Citizens Advice produces an annual league table on performance, and the next one is due in a few weeks' time. Citizens Advice has said in the past that parcel delivery services in the UK are not working for consumers. 3/4 of people have had a problem trying to sort out what's happened to a parcel, and when people complain, half of them come away unhappy with the outcome. Well, that's happened to a jewellery company on the Isle of Wight. They made a ring for Charlotte Henry, and they sent it to her by Royal Mail, special delivery guaranteed. It never came. Charlotte told us why the ring's important to her.
It goes back to when I was a child, really, because my grandmother's ring was passed to me. She died when I was a baby, and they left me some of her jewellery. It was a sort of monogrammed, quite a small monogrammed gold ring, and I used to wear it all the time when I got older, and it eventually got lost at some point. So my uncle passed away in January last year, and he was the last of that side of the family. So I thought I'll make a ring partly for him and partly with some of the elements of my grandmother's ring. I wanted it with a sort of central disc with the engraving of RC, which was my grandmother's initials, to sort of match the original. And then we incorporated 3 sort of little stars, which I think are more like flowers, but are meant to represent the 3 stars of Keble College at Oxford University, which is where Richard studied, and he was very proud of that. And the disruption has been, it has been a bit frustrating. It's been since April that we've been waiting for it. So, it is a shame. And for me, it's not about the refund. It's more about the ring, and obviously then it's asking Zebra can you make another one, which is not ideal as well for her. But hopefully we will get there, and I will have it again by the end of this year.
So that's Charlotte Henry. Well, Sophie Honeybourne co-owns Honeybourne Jewellery, made the ring that Sophie had commissioned, and it sent the ring out to her. So as I said, Sophie, you posted this ring out, Royal Mail, special delivery guaranteed. Now, how is that supposed to work?
Hello, Winifred.
Hi.
Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome.
That was really touching listening to Charlotte just then, talking about it. She's been so patient. Usually we package up the parcel, we have a drop and go account, and we've got a wonderful relationship with our sorting office that conveniently is just down the road. We take the parcel, it scans in, and then if it's special delivery, it will arrive guaranteed the next day by 1 p.m.
So it didn't come. What happened when you went to Royal Mail and told them that?
So first of all, I went to the sorting office, and from my account, from Drop and Go, it still showed that I was preparing the item. And then I went to see lovely Sandra, who I've got a really good relationship with, and she said, oh no, it's gone off. I can see it from my PDA scans. It's made it to the next depot, which is Southampton. But then it's gone. So I was just kind of left waiting and waiting. Sometimes this can happen. There might be a slight delay. It's rare, but we send hundreds and hundreds of parcels, so this is quite rare. But we just waited. We gave it another couple of weeks, and then I got in touch with Royal Mail via their just website, and then the fun began.
And basically they were not willing to compensate you for the price of this ring.
It's twofold, really. So the price of the ring was, first of all, they said they don't have proof of postage from me. They didn't accept that the item was posted, even though the PDA system, I didn't know anything about this, by the way. I've had to become quite up on Royal Mail.
That's right, as I said, it's great until it's not great.
It is. I mean, it's usually brilliant. And people don't understand, living on the Isle of Wight, we don't have lots of courier services. It's so brilliant when it works. So I emailed Royal Mail. It should have been 4 to 6 weeks. Then it became 8 weeks. They said, oh, sorry, we've got a new system. We'll get back to you. I spent hours. I actually spent 2 hours on the phone once talking to them. Nobody was contacting me back. Then I reached the actual people that were dealing with it, and they asked for so much information. They were then disputing. Mainly, they say they'll only pay the wholesale price, but we're obviously the wholesalers and the retailers. So that was going to be my next fight with them. Had I not got in touch with you guys, was the amount that they were going to pay.
So what they have told us now is that they're sorry to hear what happened to you, both with the loss of this item and then with their claims process. And they say that they will reimburse you in full now, the full retail price of this ring. Let me bring in Beth Foley. She's the Principal Policy Manager at Citizens Advice UK. Beth, these league tables you draw up about the quality of parcel delivery companies, you do them on behalf of the regulator. Royal Mail and Amazon came out but joint top last time you did this, almost a year ago now, but they both scored only 3 stars out of 5. What is wrong with parcel delivery generally?
Yeah, so for the last 4 years, Citizens Advice has published an annual parcel league table that's looking at the 5 biggest parcel carriers in the UK. And as you say, our evidence suggests problems in this area are widespread for consumers. So last autumn, we found nearly 15 million people, that's more than a third of all online shoppers in the UK, had experienced a problem with their most recent parcel delivery. So things, as in Charlotte's and Sophie's case, items going missing, sometimes being left in insecure locations, arriving late or damaged. And actually, we found complaints processes and customer service had got worse. So of the people who experienced a problem with their delivery, nearly half had a further issue trying to resolve the problem. And that was the highest level we found for 3 years. We'll be looking at this issue again when we publish our latest findings this November.
What would you advise customers to do when the parcel goes astray and they can't get the delivery company to do what it should do?
So if you've sent the item through Royal Mail, you might be able to get compensation through Royal Mail's own internal services. But if you are not happy with the response that you get from Royal Mail, you can then escalate this to something called the Postal Review Panel. So the contact details should be on any correspondence you have with your complaint. They're part of Royal Mail, but they should look again at your complaint and respond to you within 30 days. And if they can't resolve your complaint, you can go up to the Alternative Dispute Resolution Scheme, which is run by the Postal Redress Service. Generally, though, we'd advise people in this position to get in touch with the Citizens Advice Consumer Service as they can talk through the options that are available to them.
Now, whenever we speak to these parcel delivery companies, they always tell us that things are getting better. You're saying that last year things got worse.
Yes, and we were surprised to find that actually, because Ofcom, who's the regulator of the postal industry, has acknowledged that complaints processes in the parcel sector are creating particular challenges for consumers. And last year, they actually introduced some new guidance for parcel companies intended to improve these processes. However, the impact of that guidance isn't yet clear in our evidence from consumers, and we called for Ofcom to follow up on this issue. So we'd now like to see the regulator investigating carriers whose complaints processes are still not meeting their standards and issuing penalties where necessary. I think that's particularly important for small businesses who stand to lose money when items go missing or arrive late or damaged.
Your next league table's out next month. Do you expect that any parcel firm will get more than 3 stars out of 5?
Well, the research is in the field at the moment. Obviously, we would love to see an improvement in the picture, but it's not something that we've seen over the last 4 years. And I think until the regulator kind of cracks down on some of these problems, we're unlikely to see significant improvements, unfortunately.
And Sophie, you'll be sticking with Royal Mail because you don't have much choice.
I will. And actually, I was just going to go back to what that lady just said. We did do all of that. We went to the Ombudsman
Yes,
and they actually said, now you'll be advanced to phase 2. And it just felt like I was in a terrible game show.
Oh.
And I know that had we not got you guys on the case, we would still be waiting. And it's coming up to 6 months now.
Well, it'd be nice to see customer service improve for everybody, wouldn't it?
Oh, great, yeah.
Sophie Honeybourne, Beth Foley from Citizens Advice UK, thank you for that. Now, we're sticking with good value and customer service in our phone in tomorrow, but this time we want to hear from you about insurance companies. Are you getting good value and good service from your insurance company? The consumer group Which is calling on the regulator to take action on home and travel insurance. Which says they have the lowest levels of claims being accepted by insurers and that the impact on consumers when things go wrong can be huge. So here's our question. Are you getting good service and good value from your insurance company? Tell us about what's happened to you, good and bad. You can email us about that right now, youandyours@bbc.co.uk. Please include your phone number because